else to do.
Pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please.
Vaughn,
Here.
Kurtz,
Here.
Hayward,
Here.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Here.
O'Laughlin,
Here.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a couple of amendments or adjustments to our agenda. Officer Lau is not going to be here, so we can take him off. And I was also had a request, trying to find it on the agenda, as far as taking off the airport manager.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion by Hill.
Second.
Second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Okay. Deb, you're the only one that's signed up under public comment.
I just wanted to read this letter that I got in the mail.
Okay, do you want to do that now or wait until we actually have this on the agenda? Because the police department's on the agenda for later too.
Is
so
that closed
up to you.
session though, or is it?
What?
There is one section of the police station agenda, which could be a closed session if the council so chooses. But
I would like this to be read on air, not in closed session, so either way is fine with me.
Well,
yeah,
that would be part of it anyhow.
I'd recommend doing it during that topic.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so not now?
Yeah.
Wait, okay, thank you. Then I need a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda that approves the following: the minutes of the July 9th, 2018 regular meeting. It's the shortest consent agenda
I
I've
know.
ever seen. All
So
those-
moved. Second.
Kurt, second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Next is the approval of the claims.
So moved.
Motion by Hill,
Second.
second by O'Laughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Bring us down to petitions of the public, and first off, I have the independent superintendent, Russ Ryder. Is that pronounced right? You want to introduce yourself, or would you like to have Eric introduce you? How do you guys want to do this? You can do a team thing.
Hi there, I'm Eric Smith. I'm a director for the Independence Community School District. Tonight I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce to you our new superintendent, Russ Ryder. R-I, like, it's, even though it's R-E-I, I've had to learn it's like Ryder, like the rental trucks, as he says. So, Russ comes to us from Oskaloosa. I've been very excited by some of the conversations I've had with him, his fresh eyes on what our school district has to offer and things that we could improve on has been very energizing to me. So, Russ?
Good evening, everybody, and I would just like to take just a couple seconds and thank you. As a city council, I've had a chance already to meet a couple of you. Benita, we've had some conversations already, and Al and Dustin actually stopped by this afternoon, and over time, I'm sure I'll get a chance to meet all of you, and I'm looking forward to that. Been in education for 32 years now, and for that, in a vast array of positions as a middle school teacher, high school principal, athletic director, assistant principal, and superintendent in a small district and in a larger district. For family reasons, my wife and I had a chance to come north, and I'm excited to be in northern Iowa again. My hometown's originally a small town in northwest Iowa called Wall Lake, Iowa. And for that, we have two sons. Ryan's 21, Nick just turned 18 and graduated, and they'll both be attending Loras College in Dubuque next year. So I too, like what Eric just said, I'm excited to be here and to be able to try and provide as many opportunities for our kids and to work with you, the city council, and the entire district that we have, and which also includes Brandon and Raleigh. But if there's ever anything that you need specifically, ideas, and you want to bounce them off me or whatever you have, feel free to call, and just excited to be a part of the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
I have it here. Okay, next would be then the Brubicue event application. Is there anybody here to speak for Brubicue? Let's see 'em.
I think it's pretty much the same as it's always been. I'd make a motion to approve it.
I'd second that. It's a great, great event.
Okay, motion by Hill, second by O'Laughlin. Any other discussion?
I think one thing too, this year isn't the funds they raise going to be donated to the fire department too?
That's my understanding.
Yep, so good cause.
I think so. If no other discussion, we will do roll call, please.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes,
Vaughn,
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next on the agenda is Joe Mangan. Am I pronouncing that right?
How you do? I'm Joe Mangan. I'm a certified arborist and a graduate of the American Society of Consulting Arborist Consulting Academy. I've been a consulting arborist for more than 25 years, and my goal and vision is to help cities like Independence manage the emerald ash borer invasion. I have here a current map. If you have not seen this, I'll pass it around. That's from June 22nd of this year, and it shows the counties in Iowa that are confirmed emerald ash borer infestations. It's been detected. My comment on that is that before it's been detected, it has been in the area for 2 or more years. People say, well, we haven't seen it yet, and it's 3 of them, the adult beetle, can fit on the head of a penny. And these adults eat the leaves of ash trees. If that were the only issue, it wouldn't be an issue. But when they lay eggs, those eggs, when they hatch, don't go out and fly. They're a larva stage, and they go in, and they bore through the tree. I should say through that area right underneath the bark where the vascular system of the tree takes up water from the roots. And they eat that nutrient-rich tissue, and after 2 or 3 years and multiplications of an adult laying 60 to 80 eggs, and maybe half of them survive, after that, the law of large numbers begins to kick in, and they all bore until they hatch, and then they go up the tree and eat some leaves and meet someone they like, and they lay eggs shortly after that, and the process continues. The key for cities like Independence is you have to navigate this invasion because it will grow exponentially. So my question is, whose job is it to detect that these trees have ash borer in them? And unfortunately, it's no one's job until somebody gets around to say something's wrong with my tree, and then pretty soon they figure out we have it in the city too. And then the numbers start to increase. Once the numbers increase, you're going to, and you haven't acted in a thought-through plan, you're going to be behind the curve. And behind the curves means these trees are going to die more quickly than you can get to them. So the plan ought to have an inventory that has the number of ash trees, their size, and their condition, because you can't manage what you can't count. So you've got to know what shape they're in and how many of them so you can allocate your resources. Resources are, of course, cutting them down or treating them. If the plan is, well, we don't think that treatment is going to be viable, then you haven't gotten current information, because the treatments these days are highly effective and they can go indefinitely. If the tree dies, it's a good chance it isn't from the emerald ash borer, because other causes will kill a tree. But when it's been treated, the treatment right now is effective for 2 years. What's going to happen if it's detected in Buchanan County, and you have my maps circulating around here, once they start dying, you're going to have to cut down more trees than you can get to. And that creates a liability for the city. And it's expensive to cut down a tree. If you've got a 40-inch diameter tree, that takes a lot of lifting and oofing and cutting to get that taken care of. The liability factor, if one of those ash trees falls, cutting them down is cheap. Treating them is even less expensive. So for the risk exposure that a city has with a few hundred ash trees circulating around or on the streets of the city in the right-of-ways and the parks, the cemetery, you have your hands full. My purpose today is to, whether I would love to do business with you and help you set up a plan. Whether you use me or not, I encourage you to begin acting right away and start implementing a plan to control and to navigate through this invasion. And that is my statement to the city, and I'm delighted to be here. I will be available afterwards. If there's committee or people would like to talk to me, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you very much.
Briefly, just what's the cost per tree, and what's the protocol? Do you need a boom truck, or?
To treat the tree?
Correct.
No, it's I inject them systemically. I go below the bark right to that tissue where the borer is going to be, and then I use the tree's uptake of water to take the tree up to the leaf. Once it gets up there in a week or two to get to the entire tree, an adult emerald ash borer takes a bite of the leaf. He will not probably live to take a second bite. So we kill them effectively in the canopy. If there's eggs that have hatched and they've gone in, once that chemical passes through that where that borer is, their next bite, they're dead. So the control is super effective. So it's systemic into the tree. We're not spraying, there's not chemicals floating up into the air. It's not pouring it on the ground and praying it doesn't get into the groundwater and that the tree takes up enough of it to deal with the water or with the borer. Treatment systemically is the state of the art.
Is there other nearby communities? I was looking at that. Looks like it's around us effectively that you've serviced or you've worked with now.
Sumner, I'm doing work in Sumner now.
Okay.
I graduated from high school in Sumner, so.
Al, what happened to that program we was already involved with? Guy from Postville?
Yep.
What do you mean, yep? This is
What
the same
about-
guy?
No, sir. We did a tree inventory.
Right. We mapped every tree in Independence, I thought.
No,
Every
sir.
emerald.
No, we have an inventory of trees in city right-of-way, the boulevards and parks.
Right, that's true. That's all he was gonna do for us?
That was all that the contract was, is to inventory the trees.
I think at the time, he also indicated if he thought any of them were affected at that point.
But we had 20, I don't see Tim here, I think there was 22 trees that were marked for removal as a part of that
Yeah.
process, which I think the majority of those have been removed. It was not what I would classify as a tree management plan. He gave suggestions for it, and I know Bob and Tim have worked on that, but the tree removal is the primary focus, those that had to come out sooner than later.
Maybe he didn't wanna come back after that wreck he had anyway.
Two of them.
What's the cost per tree?
Depends on the size of the tree.
Well, 40-inch like you mentioned.
40-inch, that could be $250, $300. My computations there, you could treat a tree for 20 years to equal the same price to have it cut down. Now, this is from private contractors. I'm not talking about city crews. I don't have those numbers. But, I mean, if I'm going to have to pay out $2,000, I have a choice of doing it in 2018 or spreading it over the next 18 to 20 years. I know which way I would go. I value the use of my money if I can preserve the tree, especially the benefit that we're getting from the trees. The utility savings, property values, stormwater mitigation, those are all powerful reasons to keep a tree.
Does Does, I see now we've got something called the Maple.
Yes,
Is this is going to be another
the-
danger to our trees?
that maple worm is not lethal to the tree. It defoliates the tree. I say those leaves are temporary residents on the tree anyway, so it's not near the type of, it's unsightly, it's unfortunate, but it's not lethal.
How many times do you have to treat a tree?
Every 2 years. So that would be, I said, every 2 years, you could treat it for 20 years, that's 10 cycles. But once the borer has killed all of the trees in an area, like this city, and there's no more food source, they move on. The treated trees stay. Those treatment periods go out longer, and I firmly believe that science is going to give us better solutions in the future. But when it invaded this country in 2002, they didn't have what we have now. There was no history or science behind the invasion. It was learn as they went. It's killed 100 million ash trees already in North America, and the remaining ash trees in North America are in its sights because in nature, typically, the theme is the weak get eaten. That's the law of the jungle. But the emerald ash borer doesn't attack just weak trees. It attacks healthy trees, big trees, little trees, all ash trees.
I think it's a good idea. I have an ash tree, and I have been systemic treating it, had somebody do it, and
Yes.
I guess, but I like trees, so I'm willing to spend the money for it.
Trees seem to be universally well-liked. They're a little messy in maintenance sometimes, but the benefits, everybody loves a tree.
Takes a long time to grow a good-sized tree again, too.
Well, and those benefits continue to accrue. I think in my little brochure, Mayor, that you have there, an average 25-inch tree delivers $360 of benefits.
Did you give these out to everybody?
Yes.
I think I left a handful here. I have more if it need be.
Just the BTUs alone.
Pardon me?
Just the BTUs alone in the summertime when you're shading.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, for a homeowner, the rightly positioned tree and utility savings more than pays for treatment. Plus, you get the beauty. They're one of the prettiest trees that turn color in the fall.
Where are you,
Where's home for me?
yes,
Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm in Iowa for the summer, for the treatment period. I will be available if there's anyone else that has any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is public hearing for LMI homeowners repair program. So I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Sharp.
Second.
Second by O'Laughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next, I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by O'Laughlin. Second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing in regards to LMI homeowner repair program.
You have in front of you, we do have 3 bids on 2 properties. There are 4 properties that did not receive any official bids.
So we're just needing to approve these 3 or whatever.
There will be, depending on how you want to break it out, but there are portions of 3 bids for the individual properties, but we're only addressing 2 of the 6 properties at this point then.
4 did not have bids.
There's 4 that had no bids submitted. we still have to go through the public hearing process to go, to get us to that point.
Right.
I do have a call in to the folks at Intercog to make sure that we handle this the right way moving forward for those other 4 properties, because clearly they have work that needs to be done. They have people that have expressed an interest because we have contractor estimates on there, but I don't have the formal bid.
Sure.
Where's MMC from?
Independence, it's Michael McDonald Construction. I apologize, I shortened up the spreadsheet.
So do we, as with most bids, I mean, the low bid is the one that we go with?
That is generally recommended when we close the public hearing and you get ready for action. I think there's a couple of things that you should
Okay.
consider before you make a motion.
Okay.
But what I've done on the spreadsheet is put in bold the low bid for each of the actions within those 2 properties. I don't know if you want to break it out by contractor or leave them all under one contractor. Unfortunately, the way they chose to selectively bid this, it's not as clean as it could be.
Not nearly.
So if the other ones do end up getting bids, then we would have to have a hearing on those as they come in.
I'm not sure, as long as we have the public hearing, if we have to redo the public hearing aspect of this, or how we proceed on getting that work done. We have to find a way to help them get that work done, in my opinion, but I want to make sure we do it the right way.
Okay. Is there any other comments or discussion?
This is the program we set up using the money coming back in from TIF grants?
Correct. At the last meeting, you approved your first down payment assistance of the 3 that were authorized, and this is the homeowner repair portion of it.
If there's no other discussion, I would ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
Was there only a certain amount that they could have per house?
75.
7,500 per
7,500.
property.
I'd make a motion to close the hearing.
Thank you. Motion by Kurtz to close
Second.
the hearing, second by Scharf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The next, I need a motion to approve whichever or whatever you want on this. Fill in the blank.
I would make a motion to approve the bids as submitted to the low bidders on each of the projects.
May I ask just a clarifying question?
Certainly.
Do you prefer to stay with the bold numbers, the apparent low number per project within each of the parcels?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the ones that are bolded would be what you're approving in that case?
And the number on the far to the right is the total of all of this, of each one of those homes?
That would be the total if we take the low number for each aspect of the project.
So we would be splitting up the work on the projects between multiple contractors?
Correct.
Is that gonna be an issue for the contractors? I mean,
In looking at the work that they have to do, I don't believe so, because they're not overlapping projects in most of these. For the first one, for Payne, one has the roof, the other has a window. So that should be pretty straightforward. For Brusselus, it is, roof soffits and basement stairs. The rest are windows, drywall, a deck, exterior doors. So again, I don't see that overlapping.
So we would fill in both construction companies and the amounts for them into this.
I do have a question here. I guess I'm looking up here at this window bid, and I'm a little skeptical that the bid can be half of what the other two. One of them's almost a third of the other one.
Almost 4 times.
Yeah, is there like window glass included, or? I mean, just seems like quite a difference in, they know what they're bidding on?
Yes, they do, and at least two of these folks have been on site to look at the project that they're bidding
Are these contractors bonded?
on. I can't speak for bonding. These are contractors that came through our building department, so they're folks that have done work in and around Independence in the past. That's where we got the contact information, if you will. They still have to have building permits, they still have to be licensed in the city or permitted in the city to be doing work.
Sure.
But that should not be an issue. I agree with the concern there. I guess at this point, we just have to challenge the folks on, you know, making sure that we have what we're supposed to be putting in there. We do have, I will point out, we do have bid bonds for all the contractors. They're required to put that in for this project, so we do have that. And so they have to, you know, clearly have to honor the bid.
Right.
But in addition to that, we do have performance bonds. So before they can start work, they have to provide us a bond equal to the total project cost to make sure that it gets done. And just part of the steps that we have to go through.
I'd second John's motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Kurt, second by Scharf. Roll call, please.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next on the agenda is public hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 17th Street Southeast Intersection Improvement Project. So I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second?
Second by O'Laughlin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
Second.
Second by Kurtz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing in regards to 17th Street Southeast. Mr. Crawford is here if anybody has any questions.
Good evening, Brian Crawford, Crawford Engineering here in Independence. So this is for the improvements at the intersection of 17th Street Southeast and Highway 150. And we will be widening 17th Street to include a westbound left turn lane, and we'll also be improving geometry for the turning trucks, both leaving, either going north or south from 17th Street, going out onto Highway 150.
What, do we have an idea on what the starting and ending dates would be on this project?
The proposals that were submitted are completion by November 30th of this year.
So will there still be traffic at that intersection for one lane or the other, or how are you going to be able to do
Yes,
that?
yes, there will be a short time where they do some improvements right there on both sections at the interface between 17th Street and Highway 150, where we have a detour route, a DOT-approved detour route that will go down 3 Elms Road to get the people into the businesses from the backside.
Okay,
But that'll be a limited amount of time.
hopefully that's a short time
Yeah.
tour,
Yep.
detour. Okay,
And
Brian,
this-
can you refresh my memory? How far east does the project go?
The widening goes east to the low point there. If you drive out there, you can take a look at where those existing intakes are.
Okay,
And that's as
yeah.
far east as the project goes.
Okay.
This, we're also going to be doing the trail sidewalk. This won't affect any of the work on that.
Correct. Those two projects will be happening almost simultaneously. So we will coordinate those two projects and the overlap in space there. But those two projects are designed to mesh together at that location.
What was the estimated cost on that?
Estimated cost, our engineer's estimate was $216,000. Our bids were between 189 and 239.
Is there any other discussion? And I would ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved. Second. There we go.
Harmony.
Everybody's anxious to get
Choose
this
one or
done.
the other, first and second. Jason,
Monday Night Football hasn't even started yet.
you don't need a roll call for this part, right?
No, not this part.
Okay, all those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now into, next is a motion to approve and confirm plan specification, form of contract, and estimate of costs for the 17th Street Southeast Intersection Improvement Project.
I'd make a motion.
Motion by Kurtz,
Second,
second by Hill. Any other discussion? If not, a roll call, please.
Hill,
yes.
Sharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Next is a motion, is this to accept it or consideration of bids? Consider the bids.
This would be a motion to award the bid to
Jig-Fry.
Jig-Fry.
Okay,
I would make the motion.
I'd second it.
motion by Kurt, second by O'Laughlin to award the bid to Chick-fry. Any other discussion? If not, you need a roll call on this one? Okay.
Would just add as a reminder that this was through the Iowa Department of Transportation's U-Step program. This is 45-55, so the DOT is in for 55% of the construction on this project.
Oh, wow, so out of the 190,000, they'll pay 55?
55% of that, yep.
Good.
Thank you. Roll call.
Sharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Okay. So is that D, we didn't do anything for C?
No, that's just, the bonding attorney sends that because you need to consider the bids or get the recommendation from your engineer.
So we're down to 2018 street rehabilitation.
Correct.
I need a motion to approve a resolution for notice of public hearing for plan specification, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the 2018 street rehabilitation project and the taking of bids August 27th, 2018 at 6:30 PM in council chambers.
So moved.
Motion by Scharf.
I would ask-
I hear Kurtz is a second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
With the amount of money on this, 272, we've had some costs, unforeseen costs, I believe, that have come into our budget. Would it be a good idea to, hey, either have this or cut back to a smaller amount based on what we may need, based on the other projects, the Enterprise Drive East, Trail?
We do have in our bonding proposal, or in the amount that you bonded, an earmark for the Enterprise Drive East project, should that come to fruition. The place that you have, I believe, your greatest concern, though, and you're going to hear about that before the end of the meeting, is some anticipated cost increases on First Street based on what DOT has said we should do. Now,
Well,
we
I just
must-
saw the 8,900 already on, in addition to, from the,
Right, well, yeah, and we'll talk about that, but, just to your point, there are some unanticipated costs in. some of
water
these
line
projects.
replacement.
Right, and until we get to the bid process, it's hard to say what our impact is going to be. So I hate to throw cold water on this, but to your point, yes, we have unanticipated costs in some of the other projects. We do have 8 streets budgeted based on the engineer's estimate or opinion of cost, pardon me, Brian. The opinion of cost of $272,000. Again, there are 3 additional streets in there if the bids are favorable. I
One,
think that you have the and I'm gonna look at Brian on this, but I believe that the way this is structured, you can go through this process, you can advertise it, it is a unit price bid so that you can take as much or as little as you think you find appropriate.
And to Al's point, we did set up 2 bid alternates for the mill and overlay portions of this, so that if pricing is favorable, you can move forward with one, both, or none of those alternates. And of course, the council always has the option, once they receive bids, to reject all the bids. So you have that latitude after you receive the bids.
When would this go off?
We're going to publish the notice, with your approval tonight, we would publish the notice with Master Builders on August 3rd, and I think the city's notice is scheduled for August 8th, with bids to be received on the 24th, and a possible council action to award, similar to what you did tonight on 17th Street, award on August 27th.
I guess question I have is, when we were doing the curb and gutter, we ran into problems with the asphalt, that when it gets to a certain temperature, they couldn't do any more of it, they just put gravel in. Is this going to be affected by cold weather? We're getting, it seemed like end of August is a late starting date.
Well, a lot of asphalt work does get done in the fall. A lot of rehab work does get done in the fall. Once the temperatures do fall below a certain point, the asphalt plants will shut down, but we'll be keeping an eye on that as we move forward with construction. And the contractor will submit a schedule of their operations. You can get a lot of work done in September and October if the weather's right.
My concern was only
Again,
with
this
the
is-
overall budget, what the, the overall costs of the projects that we've got in place. We've got a lot of plates spinning, and
No question about that.
Rehab work does go a lot faster than full reconstruction too. We're really not doing anything behind the curb. I take that back, there are a few areas where we're gonna solve some drainage problems with the curb, but by and large, there's very little that we're doing, even in the curbs. Most of the work is gonna be the center, 24 to 26 feet.
sure.
The question on this project is this project part of where we're starting to assess the people living along the street too?
Yes.
So, I mean, this is not necessarily a total where the city's taking out.
That's right. You folks passed a resolution of necessity back in June, late June for this project. Had the public hearing for that, so a portion of this will be funded with assessments.
That answers anything I had. Thank you.
If, and I don't want to take away from what Brian's doing, he's on target with the dates that we've set for expectations. If you were going to have any of our street bond projects that you were going to drag your feet on because of those costs, this would be the only one that would be viable. And again, not talking against the project, but the
No,
rest of them have
That's why I addressed
other
that.
funding associated with
Yeah.
it. so.
The only problem I would have is this is something we've been talking about for years to try to get going on this project, and
Well, I mean, I'd love to see it go through, but I'm just concerned about the overall. We're bonding at 2.7, and I don't want to see us have a meeting in November where everybody says, I didn't think it would cost that much.
Yeah, it won't come until January.
January, yeah. La 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 la.
To your point, Mike, we won't have some of those numbers until we get those bids in and the bridge and First Street, some of those bigger ones. We probably aren't going to realistically see until we get to January.
Okay.
The point that we have is we're operating a little bit in the dark. We know what the engineer opinion of cost is on all of these projects, but we don't have those bids in hand.
Right.
And even at this point, we're still moving through that. We saw 17th Street come in very favorable, and that's encouraging. The trail project came in very favorable. That's encouraging. But, you know, some of those numbers we won't have until well into 2019. And so I don't want to paint a gloomy picture. We just don't have that until we take those bids. So I appreciate the fact that we're looking at it objectively. We understand that there's other costs out there, and I appreciate that. This is 5, possibly 8 blocks of 40 blocks identified as very poor. These are the worst of the worst streets in town that are being identified, and it's a long time coming. We backed off of the 40 blocks and said we're going to take a smaller bite-sized chunk over the next 5 years, hoping some of those 40 blocks last the 5 years until we can get to them to do a maintenance project versus a reconstruction.
And I think this is a really good first start toward fixing some of the street problems that people have been complaining about for a long time. And it's with the 5-year plan that we've got, we can knock out a lot of bad streets.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking, this money is not attached to anything, as Al said, you know. And so I thought, if we are, we have many anticipated costs. The water lines alone for that are gonna be significant. So I was thinking, well, maybe a trade-off.
Right.
I think we gotta at least get the bids and see where they come in.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And we,
Brian, is there any issues with the bids? If the bids come in, even if they're on target with the opinion of cost, does the council have the right to reject them based on other activities in the city without incurring a penalty?
I think your city attorney could probably confirm this for me, but my understanding of the Iowa code is that a city council can reject the bids for any reason, and I've actually seen that happen in the past. Budgetary constraints would be one of those reasons.
He confirmed it.
all right.
Thank you.
That was a real quiet firm over there.
He's got his microphone hidden.
Is there any other discussion? We do have a vote and a second, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The motion is carried. Thank you. We're down to resolutions. Motion to approve a resolution to assess property owners for Chapter 52 mowing failure to comply.
So moved.
Motion by Kurtz,
Second.
second by Hill. Any other discussion on that? If not, I need a roll call.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried. Next is the Highway 150 corridor. Motion to approve a resolution of support for a Highway 150 corridor study.
So moved.
Motion by O'Laughlin,
Second.
second by Kurtz. Any discussion on this? We need a roll call.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes,
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next is organization chart. Motion to approve updated supervisory organization chart and job descriptions.
This is primarily a housekeeping issue. There have been some changes within the organization, the job descriptions reflecting reporting chains or channels, and we just thought it was important to bring back to the council to keep up to date.
So some of the PDQs were changed on the different positions?
Primarily reporting, for example, the Parks Department adding the Assistant Parks Director. That had to be tweaked and updated. That was approved by the council, but not necessarily in the organizational chart, and so we wanted to get, again, primarily housekeeping. We did add, one of the issues is the airport manager was not a position that was previously approved. It's now been approved as a potential for an employment relationship, so that was added to it, which, again, previously it was not in there. Job description updates, again, reflect primarily the reporting channels. We're not changing the duties as much as just those reporting channels.
I had one question here. In looking through these, and I'm just anticipating, under street superintendent and I think water, it specifically said that those positions are positions that are the city manager appoints, but we don't have that wording in the Parks and Rec. I guess I'd like to see that in the Parks and Rec one, so we don't, somewhere down the road, have a question. I didn't see it, maybe I just overlooked it. It says under position summary, under the streets and the waterworks and that, it says position summary, it says appointed by the city manager and reports to the city manager, but I didn't see that wording in the Parks and Rec directors. I thought,
No, you're correct. That would have to be,
I guess I'd like to see that in there if we're going to approve it.
Are you making a motion to add that? If you approve?
Do I make a motion to do that?
Yeah,
I'll
if
make-
you wanted to.
Yeah. I guess I'd make the motion just to add that wording.
I'd second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add that wording to the Parks and Rec Director also. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, that has to be roll call,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Then do we still want to do the motion to approve updated supervisory organizational chart and job descriptions in general?
I was just gonna add the language for the Park and Rec Director to that motion, if that's what I was anticipating we were doing, but we can do it again.
was that the understanding of the council that voted?
I thought that was just the motion to add that
Wording.
wording is what we voted on.
That's how I took it.
Okay, so then we need a motion to approve updated supervisory organizational chart and job descriptions.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Kurtz, second by O'Laughlin, roll call.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you, motion's carried. Next is a motion to approve the payment of $25,000 in LMI Housing Fund to Steve Bruce for the purchase of a simple family home and the associated mortgage instrument.
This is what I was referring to earlier for the LMI funds. This is the first one. We do have the preliminary estimated costs for closing through WCF, the mortgage lender. If you approve this, we will have a check to them along with our mortgage document for them to sign at closing. They'll give us a final mortgage closing cost statement for our records, and it is a 5-year forgivable loan. It will obviously decrease by 20% each year as to what they'd have to repay should they sell the property in that 5 years.
I'd make a motion to approve it.
I'd second that.
Motion by Kurtz, second by O'Laughlin. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Your motion is carried. Next, we have a discussion with, is it AECom? First Street Project update. I'm
like
just blowing people's names and titles and everything tonight.
Are these the ones we don't want to hear?
I want to point out that there are 2 attachments that came late this afternoon under this agenda item. If you want to look at them on your computer, you can. They'll be the same ones as what they
Yeah,
have the
I just
boards.
wanted to get them out in case you guys felt more comfortable looking at them on your computer in front of you. You can zoom in, but it's the same thing that we have on these boards. And we just kind of wanted to get together and go over where we're at with the project. We've been receiving, going back and forth with the water department, sewer departments, getting the information we need. We got the video of the sanitary sewer, so we're able to run through that. For the most part, it's in decent shape, where when I talk about decent shape, as in slip lining as an option, that can be done, especially in the deeper sanitary sewers, mainly the downtown area, where it was gonna be difficult to construct, potentially if we had to rip that up instead of coming and slip line it. We're still working on the alignments and the layouts of the sanitary sewer. As we get those preliminary alignments put together, we'll get more information for you to review. The main thing we wanted to talk to you about today was kind of in that email I sent out, was our preliminary staging plans for the Highway 150 area. These did get a little bit more challenging with the addition of the water and sanitary sewer because of the services, especially the water services that need to run across the entire roadway. So we've come up with two options. We have the original option, which would keep head-to-head traffic in the project corridor, as we had in our concept statement. What we hit on first is option A, and this would be more of a block-by-block type construction in the downtown area. And as you can see on this board, what we'd be proposing for staging is in the blue area would be closed first. So based on our letting and construction schedule, it would be late March, early April, just weather depending on when they could actually get in there and start. And we'd be looking at around a 6 to 8 week kind of construction phase for the blue portion. And then after that, that could be opened up and we'd be able to move on to the orange portion. And by doing this and not necessarily maintaining head-to-head traffic through the area, we're able to reduce the overall construction of the project by approximately 6 weeks. We're also able to have better constructability. By having the entire roadway opened up, they can come in and do the water main services all the way across the road, and they don't have to splice it. They don't have to do half of it, remobilize when they come back and splice it.
You better bids too, because of the fact that the contractor can come in, do his work, and then leave. You won't have to do half at a time and come back and forth.
And one of the other option, or the way we looked at this as far as constructability and timing wise, the way this goes, they can come in and get that constructed. There's a possibility that we could have that first portion in the blue done, you know, a week or so prior to the July 4th holiday. And by doing that, we could look at temporary tie into the existing pavement and still allowing for the 4th of July activities to actually proceed on the current route that is used through the downtown area, because the sidewalks are still in place. You know, yes, we would still be using some of the old roadway, but the new roadway would be in, so that would become the parade route. So that would be a benefit as well through those areas. So this is kind of our recommended option, just because of the constructability and the time and the potential cost savings by speeding up the process.
We're just kind of looking for some feedback if that's a viable alternative, because of the fact that we do end up, in essence, closing portions of the road versus trying to maintain through traffic on the road.
What kind of time frame you're looking at as far as how many weeks, I'd like to say days, how many weeks would that potentially be closed like in stage one?
Okay, so stage one is about 8 to 10 weeks, so, and then 8 to 10 weeks for about the same for the other stage, so it's, that's all weather dependent though, so if we have a year where you get rain all week for multiple weeks, that's obviously gonna impact what the contractor is able to do, so those are factors, but, I typically would estimate about that for the construction period, so.
What would the time frame be if you did option B?
So we can talk about that one now. So option B is gonna increase by, what are we thinking, around 6 weeks. And one of the main reasons of that is in order to provide detours and around the areas, we have to work on the Fifth Avenue intersection first. We have to come in and complete that and get that done so we can provide the head-to-head traffic and maintain that. The one thing I just want to point out is, although we can provide head-to-head traffic here, it is tight. I mean, we're looking at minimum width for our lanes.
And it eliminates all the parking.
Yeah.
And the parking's gonna be gone, so although they can drive in front of the storefronts, they can't park so they still have to park on the side streets like they would
Or behind.
behind the stores or on the
Yeah.
side streets like they do, like they have to in either option.
Now, they can still use primarily use all the sidewalk.
Yep, there will be some reconstruction of the ramps per the ADA requirements for the DOT funding.
There will
so-
be some periodic closures of different ramps as they're working on those, but, I
Yep.
mean, we'll have it written in there to try and get those and keep those.
But they could come out the front door and go from store to store on that side.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yep.
So
Would
some of
they-
those businesses that wouldn't have front door access, they would be able to.
Would there be, if you did I'm going back to option A where you're doing no head-to-head, is there an option so that if I park on the north side and come out a storefront on the north side, will there be any option that I could cross the street to go to a store on the south side?
So like in this area you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah, you'd be able to come down to the opened area and get across and come back.
okay.
So it's
You could use,
very walkable.
you could use the crosswalk, but not the jaywalk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ideally,
find that
they're
way.
not.
I would never
even-
jaywalk.
Even if we're at head-to-head traffic, even if we're there, people aren't really gonna be able to cross in the middle. I mean, you're
Yes,
gonna have to
I-
go to an intersection anyway, because there's gonna be barricades up. The other thing, we talked about time, but the traffic control is a lot more extensive when you have the head-to-head traffic, because you have to put up the barricades. So anytime you go from one phase to another, you have some extended length in your construction time there, just setting up. You got more mobilization with the head-to-head traffic.
Well, I'm not gonna try and speak for the business owners, but I think a priority for them would be the shortest amount of interruption,
Yeah.
which would be
The other-
option A.
Yeah. The other benefit that they're gonna find, they'll still have available parking in front of their businesses for this one, because they'll be able to still come, this won't be open, but because it's a 3-lane section, you'll still be able to use that parking along the street on the open portion, because there's enough room to turn around and U-turn back out. So the nice thing about this is when the orange is being constructed, the same thing is said with the blue. You can still U-turn and get out.
I would be inclined to think option A would be, if I were owning a business, I knew I could cut 6 weeks off.
Christian, do you have any input that you'd like to offer up?
Plan A.
He just wishes it was all done.
Yeah.
This is the first time since I've seen these. I can't, I have to share with the retailers.
Well, and that would bring us to, some other things we wanted to discuss today. We wanted to get this out in front of you guys to kind of review. But we want to move towards, because we have a couple of solid options now, we want to move towards setting up a public meeting to invite all the property owners and businesses and anyone else in the area who would like to come by. But when we do that, I would rather present the plan and then get the feedback and not necessarily have the two plans, because
What you'll find is it just creates opposition because somebody's gonna like one option over the other, and so what we typically like to do is present what the best alternative is, and that's kind of what our opinion is, and we'd like to get your
And then
feedback,
we
because
can-
if it's something else, we can definitely.
How early would they start that, like in April?
Weather depending, sometimes depending on the contract, they can start in March.
bet.
It just depends on.
I think the
when
big
frost
part, if we do the A, is that we're definitely done and ready to use it for the 4th of July. Second part isn't such a
Yeah,
big thing
you're
for town
not, you're not gonna,
independence.
you'll definitely have to detour, the 4th of July, but when you have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's not a real good way of staging this through the July 4th and county fair, because it's right in the middle, and you might need mid one or stage 2 or.
And it looks like A is gonna be easier for the contractors.
Yes.
Yes, it's definitely easier because like we were talking about with the utilities now in there, they can run the entire utility in that area. You know, they can go from point A to B across the road. They don't have to do half, come back in and tie into it and do the other half.
Do we need to vote on one of these tonight?
No.
No, they're just looking
This
for
is just an information.
In
direction.
the interest of giving you feedback, I would be in favor of option A.
I agree.
I would too.
I would too.
And see, that's how, what we would do then is, we'd kind of put the preliminary, get some strip maps and everything for the public hearing and have a little presentation at that. And move forward with this and get the feedback and, you know, see what they answer questions there. And hopefully, if there are people that were really wanting this option, we can change their mind or we can discuss, you know, why.
I think once you explain the accessibility and especially the time change difference,
The downtime's gonna be the big.
yeah, that's
I-
huge, yeah.
I think for somebody coming who maybe is listening and wondering why this is, part of it's come up because we've determined it's not just pavement, we're changing downtown. What other changes are we doing down there that maybe you could explain?
Yeah, so, as far as changes?
Yeah, what are we requiring us to tear it all up?
Okay.
The original scope of the project was to replace the roadway from inside of curb and gutter joint to inside of curb and gutter joint, since that was replaced within the last few years along with the whole streetscaping project and sidewalk. As we got to looking and talking with the utilities, we realized that the water main in the area is in fairly poor condition as far as the shutoffs. The valves are in rough shape, and there's just the material itself is over 100 years old for the water main. So we had discussions about that, so it was decided with the street ripped up, you guys made the decision that we should look at replacing the utilities at that time. So our original plan was just the pavement, which was gonna be a lot, you know, a simpler plan. You don't have to dig down and do the utilities and the cross, utility connections and things like that. So with that additional work, we looked at, you know, options for different staging plans, as well as keeping the original one as an option. We're also looking at, updating the curb ramps in all the areas at all the intersections, to meet the new ADA accessibility guidelines. So those will be updated as well.
Okay,
as part of
thank
this
you, because
project.
people listening on, we know, but the
Yeah.
people on television don't.
Yeah.
Suddenly, we've gone from a few weeks to talking 6 weeks of downtown, so there's more to it than just replacing the pavement.
Yeah.
The other thing Al alluded to was the traffic signals, and so, touch on that.
Well,
Okay, so-
she's the traffic signal expert. I'll let her talk on those.
So the traffic signals in downtown do not meet the ADA requirements, so they don't, some of them have the push buttons and, or no, I don't think any of them push buttons, but some of them have the signal heads that say don't walk or walk. However, those do not meet the ADA compliance. So if you touch them, and when I say touch them, it means like maintain them, switch traffic signal heads, work with the cabinets, do things like that. At that time, that would trigger the requirements for ADA to be upgraded. Because we're not, in essence, doing anything with the traffic signals, we would not have to update them as part of this project. The DOT is recommending that we do upgrade them at this time. There's a lot of reasons for that, because it's more of a should, because we are reconstructing the roadway. Now, we aren't getting into them, obviously, so we don't have to. But the other benefit to you in looking at doing them now is this is going to be the cheapest time to ever have to reconstruct them, because you're already ripping up the sidewalks around them. In order to do the ADA requirements, you're already doing the roadway in order to get the conduits for the wires back and forth. And so those are things that if you go back and do after we've already reconstructed the road, then you have to bore the conduit in, then you have to tear up your sidewalks in order to bore it, and then you have to set all these new handholds, and there's just quite a bit of work that you end up doing a second or third time, especially for the ADA ramps, because you've already done them once, we're gonna come in and do them twice, and if you do traffic signals, that'd be the third time. So it's just, that would be kind of where the DOT is coming from, and why we're wanting to discuss that as an option for you guys. So I do know that traffic signals are not cheap, because they do come with a pretty good price tag, so it's definitely something that is a
And by
difficult choice.
big
I
price
know.
tag,
Yeah.
we're talking about 200,000 per signal, right?
Correct. So that's usually what I use for an estimate.
Per signal, per intersection.
Per intersection. So when I say intersection, I typically mean a four-legged intersection. So obviously, like Second Street is not a four-legged intersection, but the rest of them are. You do have a pretty new signal at the 5th Street, 1st Street intersection at the sub shop in the northwest corner. You could utilize that one. That would save probably about, I would guess, around 20,000 on that one. So those are ways that you can look at saving money. However, if you wanted to keep with the black decorative poles, I don't know that I would recommend keeping all, or doing all new black poles and leaving the one galvanized pole, but I know that's what's out there today. So that would be a recommendation. So if you wanted to go back to galvanized and not have black, you could, in essence, reuse that one, so.
Is it possible, and I think Mike mentioned this once before, can we just stub in everything? Do we, I mean, as opposed to putting in all new streetlights, could we just stub all the conduit and stuff in?
Yeah, the condition of your poles is, there's a couple of them that are, yeah, there's a couple of them that, I don't know that I would recommend doing that too. You can, but it's gonna be difficult because of the condition that they're currently in. And then you would still have to put in like pedestrian push buttons within the recommended zone for the ADA. So even, you could put in the little, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about when I'm over here doing
Well,
this, but they're shorter
I'm not talking about
poles.
changing anything. You talked about you have to tear stuff up to run conduit.
Yes.
I'm just talking about running conduit, not
Oh.
making any changes to
Okay.
the street lights. Just run the conduit, just
Yep.
do everything we need so that when the time comes, all we gotta do is take the current stoplights down and put up new ones.
Okay, the problem with that is then you'll have to do new concrete bases that are about 16 foot deep and they are about 3.5 foot wide. And then you have new handholds, new pedestrian push button footings. So it's not as simple as just taking one pole down and putting up a new one, because you have to do all of this new underground stuff too. So there'd be new footings that you'd have to install, redo the handholds, you'd redo. And so in order to do those things, you still have to take that sidewalk concrete out. Like you can have the conduit stubbed out from underneath the pavement, so you wouldn't have to bore that. That would be a cost savings. But what I've found in the past with that is that those conduits aren't always necessarily in the right spot in the end, or they get damaged from utilities coming in, and like CenturyLink goes in and bores right through it, or they cut right through it when they do some new fiber line or do some work like that. And so you find that when you go to use it, it's not always in a usable condition.
And constructability wise, it's big equipment they take out there to drill these holes, so when they go
Yeah.
out there, typically they break a panel or two of the sidewalk or something along
Yep.
those lines. I mean,
Yeah.
they try to be careful, but,
Yep.
you know,
So,
there's more of a zone that you deal with.
So if we changed everything, what are we adding to the project cost for streetlights?
well, like he had said, it was about $200,000, and you've got 3 different streetlights. You've got 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. And so it'd be those 3 intersections that would add the cost. So you're looking at $600,000, and that's a conservative estimate, but because you will find that when you do multiple intersections at a time, your price does go down. So you get a cost savings through that.
But Second's only got not as many lights, so that would be.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
you,
that's what she's
that,
saying. I mean,
I'm
that's
saying
what
a
she's
conservative
saying. There could be a little
estimate.
bit
Yep.
less than that. There would be a little bit additional fee just for the signal design, from our end, just to lay out the signals and placement of where they need to go and everything like that. But that's gonna be,
That would-
significantly
yeah,
less
that's
than
not-
the cost of the signals
Yep.
going in.
Will the new signals make the traffic go through downtown quicker during the school rush hour?
You can time them more efficiently and have them
Depends
talk
on how
to
many
each
people
other.
push the button.
Very-
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot, when she says the ADA and like pedestrian, you usually have a lot of places now you'll have the stoplight, and then you have just another pedestal by the crosswalk, so you don't actually go to the stoplight, you push, the button on the pedestal.
Sure.
Is what most likely would go.
And the state in
Ernie.
all their wisdom recommending this is helping us pay for this, right?
Yeah, we
We
can,
did bring that up at the meeting.
Yeah, with the
to see
DOT.
what was available, and it just didn't seem like they were too receptive to that.
yeah, typically what you find in cities is that the traffic signals are under the ownership of the cities. And so the DOT doesn't take any ownership or any funding participation. They did say that sometimes if there were safety concerns, you can go after some safety grants. However, this is not one of those situations that it's a safety hazard. It's the double-edged sword of having safe intersections.
Even though two of the intersections are on the DOT's section,
Yep,
they didn't care about that.
They don't,
No.
because I guess they look at it as you're putting signals because they're in your town, our road goes through there,
Yep.
so.
and I wish I could help you and have different news.
Roundabouts, that'll solve it.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
I can do those, I've done those too.
Is there a significant price difference between A and B there?
For constructability, yes, you come through with the, traffic control, you'd see a cost savings in the, cost of your traffic control. This would be more than that because the contractor's gonna find it less expensive to come in and close the road than putting up barricade all along the corridor and having to maintain them.
Plan A is actually cheaper than.
Plan A
Yes,
would be cheaper,
yep.
yeah.
Okay.
It's cheaper, quicker, and we feel it's gonna end up being better for the businesses because right in front of their store is going to be impacted half the time because in front of their store would be impacted twice.
They're not, they're gonna be impacted, it's,
Yeah.
it's construction. but
That's
we're
They're
gonna-
used to it.
We're trying to minimize it,
They're used to
as much as we can.
So,
I think those are kind of the main updates. We didn't really hit much on the east end of the project, where we're gonna be working with the bridge closures. But that's gonna be a similar block by block construction because we don't have the volume of traffic and the businesses and stuff. So we will, we have a similar staging plan to this. We will have intersections open and we'll have blocks closed down, giving access to the library,
Yep.
maintaining that access and everything during construction.
we'll cover that when we do the public information meeting.
So potentially you could do, on the Plan A, you could do the area from the bridge to Third Street, as you shown on there. And then at the same time, you could do the block from
Yeah.
the dead block,
The
the
way
dead
our
block
plan
to the
is
bridge.
set up is we would be doing the block from the Malone Creek Bridge to, I can't remember if we went to
It's
step.
the center of the, library driveway, or
Yeah, the
maintain
center
the
library.
driveway
So that
access.
would be going on coincident as the stuff
Simultaneously with
downtown.
the other?
Yep.
Yep. So, yeah, we're hoping that we can have that both ends, this
So-
end and the far end, constructed in one season.
So then if we did have a delay, or not necessarily a delay, but we have provisions in there to make it open for the 4th of July, the contractor doesn't have to stop work, they can still be working on the east end of the project.
Yep. So,
That's how we.
they don't have to mow
They don't
out.
have to pull out
Yep.
and go to another job.
So-
and we have to wait for them to get
Do we need to let you know if we want to do the traffic signals, or are you gonna
Sooner the
start-
better because of the fact that we do have to get
We
designed.
have to get them designed,
They-
and we have check plans coming up that we need to submit to the DOT for review. so.
This was one of the reasons that I brought up the 272,000.
So,
I guess while we're up here, we did discuss the public meeting. Are there typical days of the week that
like,
you guys like to have public meetings on? We were thinking of a Tuesday, like August 7th, somewhere in that range that week or the following week, to try and set up. And ideally, we like to hold it as close to the corridor as possible, and I know that the library has a pretty good meeting area, so we were wondering if that would be a good option to try to set something up like that in the library.
I think the libraries are a very good location, just making sure that they have the room available.
Yeah, the online calendar, I haven't talked to them yet, the online calendar shows availability, but yeah, once we nail down a date, we'll firm that up.
So in order to nail down a date, we need to approve one of the two plans, and then the signal,
I don't know if you necessarily have to approve the plan. I think the general consensus, we can move forward with the plan, with the design, and that's how it'll be presented. And then we'll work and discuss the project and get the feedback and discuss it with the property owners and business owners in the area.
Sure.
And talk to them about why we did what we did.
I suspect they didn't mention to the superintendent the new street project and the logistics of getting buses through town, did they?
Not when we were hiring them, no.
We've got a pretty good.
They just gotta
detour.
follow the signs.
I think the real issue is, they have their direction on your
Yep.
preferred staging. I wouldn't go through an approval process until after we have the public
Yeah.
input, to be fair, and share it with the public. So I think their task is in order. I think the concern is, how do you want to handle the traffic lights, the stoplights?
Obviously, the time to do them is when we have everything tore up, but you're talking a chunk of change. Maybe we scrap the $272,000 street rehab. I hate to do that, but
I do too, but that's half of what we're probably gonna need.
that's one intersection. Maybe the staging, do you think that would save?
Your first staging, you're talking anywhere from 10 to 20,000, so it's,
Oh,
that's not gonna be a huge.
but what about
big dollar.
what about the bid? What impact do you think it'll have on the bid?
That's tough to tell. I
Yeah.
mean, that.
I know.
That's tough to tell because, obviously the contractor can get in there quicker and they can construct it a lot easier when everything's closed down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a firm number, but, typically they are lower bids when the projects are set up like that.
That
So
might be
even
where
if
we
we
pick up
scrap
another
the
intersection.
rehabbing, where do we get the other $200,000-300,000?
Yeah, we got it.
At this point, it's favorable bids between this, you're looking at all of your projects combined, but that would be the only place that I could point you at today is, the bids coming in as favorable as they have.
Bake sales, can drives.
Tina said they won't do that.
Did you get all your answers, everything you need?
For now, yeah, if you guys wanna continue with the traffic signal, or if you wanna just tell us, no, don't worry about it, or if you wanna internally discuss, that's fine, you don't have to do it here in front of us.
It would be a huge mess if we waited. It would be costly and really inefficient on our parts to wait.
It will be, it will require some rework because, currently, in order to meet the deadlines that we have gone over checkline and stuff, we are formulating the set of plans. Obviously, there's things like this that we're still up in there, staging and stuff, but overall construction is the same, what's being replaced and everything. So, the longer that it does wait, we do have some intersections that we have to review. Kind of started the design of those intersections, so there will be some rework, yes.
What would it take to trigger this, being mandatory?
If you have a, signal head that goes out, you have to maintain it.
So then you're
Technically, that would
talking-
consider maintenance, so,
You're
not that
You're talking that particular, just fix that
Yep.
particular one, right?
Yes,
We
that
don't
would
have to go
trigger.
rebuild the whole town just because of that one, then, right?
correct.
From a timing standpoint, this project will be constructed over 2 fiscal years. The option that we do have is before we finish our 2020 budget, we will have the bids in and have another idea as far as where we're at. But that would be the next avenue that we'd have is to be building that into our 2020 budget.
Now, this could have effect on future money from the government if we don't do this, even though they say you should, it could, it would be nice. We open a panel, don't change the street lights, and they come back and we want a grant in 2 or 3 years, and they say, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to. Could it have an ill effect on future projects?
If you were not ADA compliant and say you did some maintenance or did something to your traffic signals and you didn't do it at that time, then yes, you could in essence be in, I don't want to say trouble, but you could have issues because of the fact that you're not following through with the ADA requirements.
But right
But you
now,
can
we don't have to,
verify with your
correct?
attorney. What?
Right now, we do not have to, correct?
Correct. If you have no issues with your
So-
signals
so-
and you're not getting into the cabinet.
So what you're saying is if something happens
Yeah.
down the road and we jerry-rig it or whatever,
Yep.
then we're probably not in compliance, right?
Now,
Correct, unless you have a different understanding. But
we recently converted those to LEDs.
Yep.
And they would be obsolete at that point, because the new ones are gonna be LED, I'm assuming.
Correct. So if there are new signal heads, there are things that you can do. We can either try to reuse the existing signal heads if they're fairly new, or what a lot of communities do is they salvage the equipment that they have, so that way if they have issues at a different intersection, they already have a supply of signal heads on stock, ready to be used, ready to be recycled. So those are things that we can do as part of the contract if that is the direction you want to go. Those are items that you can salvage and reuse other locations. The same thing with the cabinets, the hardware inside the cabinets, things like that. A lot of communities will actually come in, have the contractor salvage them and deliver them to their public works facilities so they can keep those. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Okay. Are we down to D?
Yes. Scare tactics work, don't they?
Next is, on the agenda is a motion to approve the First Street East supplemental agreement.
This, in essence, adds a portion to the storm sewer, a T into the storm sewer system in approximately the 6th Avenue Northeast area, so that Buchanan County, should they decide to do a stormwater project at the courthouse, would have a place to tie into it on our project without tearing up the street after it's reconstructed.
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Hill,
I'll second it.
second by O'Laughlin. Any other discussion?
Is this kind of doing it because the police station going possibly up there?
No, this really has more to do with the Sally Port and the dispatch center flooding when they get a significant amount of rain. They're built below grade. The parking lot at the courthouse is very, very flat. There's no place for the water to go. When it does leave there, it goes north and then west. Well, that backs up very quickly, and again, causes more flooding. They had approached us several weeks ago. I know Brian had commented at Public Works that he was concerned about water traveling from one drainage district to another. If we tie it into the Second Street Northeast project, which was kind of what we had looked at doing, and his recommendation was not to leave that district. Well, this, you're coming straight south, it's a shorter project, it's a block and a half versus 2.5 blocks plus. We don't spend any more money on the Second Street project trying to bring our storm sewer up closer to them. It just makes it much cleaner, much simpler, and it keeps it in the same drainage district. So at the end of the day, it's probably a better solution. I know that they do not have the money in this year's budget to do a project, the courthouse, from the courthouse. This would be in their next fiscal budget, they'd have to build it in.
Is that the only option, is running that water to First Street?
Well,
Why can't they go down Second Street or Third Street to the west?
Well, the water's going to come down, and again, I don't want to speak, this is Brian's expertise, but the water is coming down to First Street in that area. Either it's going west of Fifth Avenue and then coming down, or here they can capture it, bring it down Sixth Avenue, and tie it into the storm sewer there. And I think there's quite a bit of water that already comes down Fifth Avenue to that Quick Start corner. But Brian, I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, I think right now the water that they're talking about is
It's coming up.
right in the front door of the police station.
Sure.
But when that stormwater, if we were to direct it one direction or another, is it more effective to take it straight west and try to get it across Highway 150 and down Second Street all the way to the river? Or in this case, we're talking about bringing it south to First Street?
Why don't you come up to the podium, Brian?
I think right now that water, the water that does get out of the courthouse, the newer part of the paving of the courthouse that is a problem up there, the water that does get out of there goes west on Second Street down to Highway 150 and then goes north to the intake that's at the corner of 3rd and 5th, or 3rd and Highway 150. There's an intake at the southeast quadrant of that intersection. Unless the rainfall event is such that it's overtopping Highway 150, but there's pretty good crown in Highway 150 right now, so. And this is not an area that we have studied in detail. We're just kind of looking at what we know happens.
Why would we mess with First Street then? If it goes down Second and then goes north, it's going away from First Street.
And the First Street, please don't misunderstand, the First Street proposal is not mine.
Right.
So I'm not familiar with what what proposal is in front of you tonight. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, yeah, and the only proposal tonight is stubbing the storm sewer on First Street, so we're not tearing up a street for a future stormwater study, a pipe. The concern, though, is the Third Street storm sewer is already overloaded when we get rain, and that's what's coming off of the parking lot, correct? There's a pipe on the, and Brian, I apologize, I know you didn't study the parking lot there either, behind the courthouse, but I think we were told it goes north out of that parking lot to Third Street to pick up a storm sewer there, and that's where the bottleneck is.
Yeah, we looked at it from the standpoint of our Second Street project that's down by 8th, and, you know, the distance to come from the courthouse down to there versus, you know, even going to First Street, you're talking about 1 block versus 2 or 3 blocks of storm sewer construction. So at that time, we were just comparing, and again, taking water from one drainage districts where it originates, it should really stay in that drainage district. Right now, the courthouse water is in the Wapsipinicon watershed, where the Second Street job is in the Malone Creek watershed. So that's kind of the extent of what Al had us look at and what I presented at the last Public Works Committee meeting. But as far as an alternate route for that, I don't know that that's been really studied, at least by Crawford Engineering. It hasn't been studied. That's something we certainly can look into if you'd like us to, and discuss it at the next Public Works Committee meeting.
Al, I can kind of talk to this a little bit. The actual agreement that's on here that we were kind of talking about was more for those easements. In the northwest corner, or in the 5th Street corner, that we were looking at when we met with the DOT to get the easements for the sidewalk.
I apologize, I was looking at stormwater.
But the stormwater, I've studied that area as well, because as far as providing a stub for that on our project, that wasn't gonna be an extra. There was no extra on that. I reviewed what areas are draining in that area, and I can provide a connection, just a stub out pipe in that area as part of our project. That if we're talking about a 6-foot section of pipe, that if a future project comes along, that option's there. It's not really gonna add cost to the First Street project, but it's one. My drainage plan currently is becoming a symbol, because I've got the preliminary drainage pretty far along on the First Street project, is, as Brian was saying, from the Second Street intersection, Second Street drains south from that intersection to 150 currently. And there's really not the required number of intakes along that stretch to meet DOT criteria. As part of our project, we're looking at adding a couple intakes right before the intersection of First Street. That would allow for a future connection point there, if they wanted to bring that down. But we're also looking at the Second Street, Third Street intersection, yeah. Hold on, the 6th Avenue intersection, sorry. At putting, where we have intakes there, that there could be a future connection if that's the route that they chose to go down. So there would essentially be 2 places that they could connect, depending on how their plan comes together when they do their final analysis of that.
I apologize. I'll let you talk about it. I read the stormwater reconstruction and I got sidetracked. We have to have temporary easements at the intersection of.
So as part of the meeting we had with the DOT, for their roadway, Highway 150 near Quick Start there, in order to get that sidewalk to meet ADA requirements with the current layout of, there's how tight the right-of-way is there, and with the street light in the middle of the sidewalk, we have to bump out around that between Quick Start sign. There's room between Quick Start sign and the street light that we can actually sneak the sidewalk through there and meet ADA requirements. But in order to do that, we would be getting onto Quick Start property where there currently isn't a sidewalk. So in order to do that, we would require a temporary easement to get from their property for that sidewalk. The same is true at the southeast corner of that intersection on Dunlop's property. In order to meet ADA requirements, we have to run our sidewalk across the very corner of Dunlop's property. It doesn't appear like it would affect his parking lot in any way, how he parks his cars there now. But it would require a temporary easement from him as well. So what that agreement, the additional is for, is to work with JCG to do the acquisition part of it, and we would do the property survey and write up the temporary easements for the acquisitions on those corners. This was something that wasn't in the original scope. We didn't know at the time that the right-of-way would need to be impacted. This project was originally, I guess the concept was no right-of-way impacts when we bid the project. And this was something that the DOT required as part of because it's on 150. We did ask them if they would pay for it, and we did go through those routes, and they put it back on the local entity to take care of that.
So we need a motion to approve that?
Yes, sir.
I would make the motion.
We had a motion by Hill and a second by O'Loughlin.
The easements.
Just need a roll call. Yep.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next on the agenda is City Hall renovations.
I I handed out the bids that we received for the City Hall renovations. We received 3. RM Construction of Hazelton was the apparent low bid at $16,199. And the high bid, Peyton Construction at $21,815 and Yoder at $24,529.
And all three of those had the exact layout to do.
They all had the same layout. All 3 of these individuals walked through the City Hall project. They've all looked at, exactly what it entails with removing the walls, adding 2 walls. We're reusing existing doors, so we're not purchasing new doors. There is some minor electrical, moving electrical boxes, some low voltage wire. I think there's 2 AC ceiling units that are boxes that have to just be moved one direction or the other. But that's included in there.
Are these all within the same time frame roughly? I mean,
Yeah,
nothing specific.
Yeah, they're all, anywhere from the 1st of August to the end of August. I think one finishes up the end of September in their proposed dates, but they're within the time frame of the ramp and step project, which is the guideline that we gave them for doing this.
Sure.
We extended the offer to work after hours in the evening or weekends. They have to be shut down in the evening by 10 o'clock because of the fire department. We don't want noise upstairs, but if they prefer to work some on the evenings or weekends, we made that available to them. They seem interested in that, especially in the demolition phase, because it's a lot easier to do that without people in the office. But we did tell them that they have to be able to work while we're here, because we have to continue to operate. And that was not a big concern. So, at this point, like I said, all 3 gentlemen, these 3 gentlemen have all walked through the project. It does include paint and floor covering, as well as the walls moving and slider service windows in the place where we have stationary windows currently.
We talked about wanting to do this, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we take the low bid for remodeling City Hall.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Hill, second by Scharf to accept the RM construction bid, the low bid. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Scharf,
Yes.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next it is discussion item of 2018 outstanding debt obligation report.
And this is just your annual outstanding debt obligation report, nothing that you guys have to formally approve or adopt, but I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to review it and look at it, just list out any debt that you had as of June 30th.
I appreciate this. It's well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, is the sewer revenue utilities, is that, or geo sewer improvement, is that a loan or is that or a general obligation bond or?
It is a loan. That's the one that we refinanced. That was geo debt, and we
Right.
refinanced it to be a loan with Farmers State Bank.
But the sewer, our monthly sewer rate pays for that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's a revenue,
Yeah.
yep.
I think we got at significantly lower interest rates.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Discussion?
The only other comment just in passing, I'd make toward the bottom of that, there is an LED streetlight loan with WPPI. In essence, that one is a fairly nominal amount annually. We also have the street lighting where that's paid for by our savings. Because we have significant savings on the streetlights by going to the LED. We'll continue making payments at the rate that we were previously. The savings are what repay that. So it's not actually it is a liability. It's not an annual appropriation that we're making to cover those debts. And that's just our partnership with the utility.
Okay, move on. Okay, we do have on here the possibility that we could go into a closed session if we would need to discuss purchase of property or anything in regards to the police department site.
And I've looked into this after speaking with Al. The exact wording of the exception to the open meetings requirements are to discuss the purchase of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could reasonably be expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for the property. Considering the facts and circumstances, it's my opinion that premature disclosure could impact the city's bargaining position and accordingly have an impact on the price.
So you're recommending we do go into closed session for this? Or does that depend on interest of the council to be looking into this?
Correct. The closed session is not required. It is only available to you this evening if you want to consider making a purchase offer or discuss purchasing property as opposed to building on property that we already own.
I would like to go into closed session.
I'd second that.
I'd like to read this before we go into closed session, though.
Okay.
About the new police station being built in the First Ward Park is disgusting. It would ruin the whole atmosphere of the park, a grassy, shady scenario place to go to enjoy and kids to go and play. Once these spots are gone or messed up, there is no replacing them. I bet if it was happening in your backyard, you wouldn't like it either. Besides, the traffic is bad in this area already with the courthouse. If the city constantly is using 7th Avenue, the city is constantly using 7th Avenue, their main road. Parking would be another problem. The sheriff's office already uses up a lot of it. If you want to use the park, use the one on 4th Avenue Northeast there. It's hardly anything there and no one uses it. The city has brought up other properties and have plenty of empty lots and places to go, like River's Edge, which isn't used that much. They could move then to the Falcon Center, which isn't used that much either. The excuse is it would cost too much, the old Fairway, to redo, then draw up new plans that's not so fancy, where it wouldn't cost so much. It wouldn't be taking anything off the tax roll, and you wouldn't be spending money on something else. The city can't afford the Medical Associates building, etc., which is where most people think they should be going. But they can't afford to build one from scratch, which won't be cheaper either. But Independence always wants everything new, has to be the biggest and the best. Everyone I've talked to, does not want it put in a park. But most of us know some influential people have made up their minds that's where they want to go and will not compromise. They'll do nothing but find fault with everything else. There isn't any parks in this area that is as busy, that is very upsetting to many people. But no, I don't do any good to complain because the council don't care about them. And I'll do what they please, mainly because they don't have the nerve to stand up to certain people to take over one of our public parks is sad, and there has to be a better solution. I received that in the mail anonymously.
They did not sign it to step forward. Okay, we do have a motion and a second about going into a closed session. Does this have to be roll call?
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Hayward,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried. We are going into closed session. We will be back afterwards, folks, if you want to wait around.